Hey everybody, it's Brooke with the Buttered Home. Welcome to Messy Kitchen Monday. I'm so excited. We are counting down the weeks. We are just a little over 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. So I'm here tonight to show you in true Buttered Home fashion how scratch-made recipes are really not that difficult. Tonight, we're going to be making cornbread dressing. I know I told a lot of you last week that that's what we were doing, so I wish you could see my kids. They're like, yes, let's do this. So, because they get to have Thanksgiving just a little early whenever we do this. We've been eating dressing since when, Big D?
Forever.
September. So we tend to work ahead, so we have tested and we have cooked and we have shot pictures and all that good stuff. So we've been Thanksgiving and I don't even know if that's a word. We have been having Thanksgiving for 2 months now. But rest assured, that lets you know that this is tried and true, and it is simple, it's easy. You can mix it up ahead of time. You can freeze it even and then thaw it and then cook it the day of Thanksgiving, and it is wonderful. So we're gonna get started, and this recipe will drop later in the week. So if I don't give you the amounts tonight, don't fret. If you're not a Buttered Home VIP member, then as soon as we get done, on Facebook, you could go to the top of the page and there's a sign up button on our cover photo that will allow you to sign up for our emails. And on Instagram, you can go to the link in our bio and there'll be a sign up block in there where you can sign up as well. So, what I did yesterday is I made my cornbread, and never fear, I'm going to give you the recipe for the cornbread too. It's just some self-rising cornmeal, some buttermilk, some eggs. It's really, really good. And I like to do that ahead of time because cornbread has to completely cool. And a lot of times if you're in a hurry, it's like trying to watch a pot of water boil. It just doesn't happen fast enough. So today, I broke it up. Well, first, I cooked it in my cast iron skillet. So, see, I haven't completely cleaned it up. But I cooked it in my 10-inch cast iron skillet and then let it cool and then packaged it up and then got it out today, broke it up, put it in my food processor, and you are left with a cornbread meal of sorts. Now, this fine grating of the cornbread is my preference. This is one of the beautiful things about this recipe is that if you like it chunkier or if you like it finer, you can break it up to your desired consistency. That's one of the things I love about recipes like this is that even down to the texture, you can make it your own. So for me, we like this fine cornmeal texture. And I have, it looks like a lot, I know, but this is 1 pound of cornbread, I think, or one cake of cornbread, 1 10-inch skillet making of cornbread. So to this, it's really, really simple, really easy. What I have done is I have taken celery and onions in a whole lot of butter and I have sauteed the celery and onions and cooked them till they're just translucent, and you can see that here. They're just kind of opaque and glossy with all that good butter. And to the cornbread, we are going to add that mixture. Now, pro tip here, if you can, let it cool, because we're going to add eggs to this, and this is not fried rice, so you don't want your eggs to scramble. So I like to let mine cool just a little bit. Let me get this out of the way. And then I'm just going to give that a quick stir to get that butter, because it's a lot of butter, mixed in real good with the cornbread bits. And you'll see it'll start trying to kind of change consistencies. It's almost like making biscuits. You'll get more of a pea size mesh of the cornbread and the butter and the onions and the celery. Now, I have added the salt and pepper, or the salt, to the onions and the celery. So all I'm gonna add at this point is my pepper. Do I have a question, Kay? And y'all, we have Tanner and Reagan here with us tonight. Reagan, the elusive Reagan, has joined us to help tonight. And
I always try to help.
For those of you who are not local, I know I told you guys about a month ago that she was up for homecoming queen at school, and she won. So
this has been a almost month ago thing.
I know, I just said it had been about a month ago.
There's been a lot going on.
Proof on Facebook and Instagram Live that she does not listen to me. All right, so I'm gonna mix that pepper in. And you need very little salt, okay? And all I do is really put maybe not even a whole teaspoon of salt whenever I cook the celery and the onions. It just kind of helps sweat them out a little bit because we are going to add chicken broth to that. If regular chicken broth is too salty for you, then I suggest you do the low sodium because that really is all the salt that you need for this recipe. So the salt is more about helping the vegetables sweat and not really about the flavor. So, all right. And to this, we are going to crack 3 eggs. And just whip those up just a little bit. And pour them right in. And mix that up. Get it good and incorporated. And literally, this is all you do. So, now I'm just going to tell you, there is an art to making dressing, and I do believe that not everybody has great dressing, but I'll tell you why I think a lot of people don't have great dressing is because they try to do too much to it. So if you go with the KISS method and keep it simple, then it will be great dressing. I mean, that's just an honest truth and another pro tip. Don't try to do too much. If you like sage, add a little bit of sage, not much, because a little bit of dried sage goes a long way. We don't love sage, so I'm leaving the sage out. But now I have had dressing. Sage is for sausage, Danny says. But if you just want a good, simple dressing, this is your ticket. And sometimes simple is better. This is the same type of dressing I've been eating my whole life, and it's fantastic. It's just what you need for Thanksgiving, and there's just something comforting about it. Now, just like with biscuits, you have your chicken broth. Just like the texture of the cornbread whenever you zip it in your food processor, this will also be according to your preference. Now, keep in mind that you do want your dressing mixture to be a little bit wetter or more saturated before you cook it, because a lot of the broth is going to cook away. So when you look at it and you can kind of see how wet it is, you just have to find the degree to how wet you want it. I like to make mine just a little bit soupier, because what that does is it gives it more of a firm but saturated texture. And when we pour it in the pan, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I add a little bit of the broth at a time, just to kind of gauge and see if it's where I want it. So I tend to use all of the broth that the recipe calls for. Now, one other thing to note is that right now, you could pour this in a freezer bag and freeze it. And it would keep for 2 weeks until Thanksgiving. You would need to get this out ahead of time and let it thaw in the sink or on the counter like that morning. And then you would need to stir it and check your consistency and possibly add more broth. But anytime I have frozen it, I've not needed to add a thing. I've just thawed it out, stirred it real good, and then poured it in the pan. Leftovers, if you have any, then whenever you reheat it, you may need to just kind of sprinkle some more chicken broth on the top when you reheat it too, to kind of reconstitute it just a little bit, because the oven will dry it out the longer you cook it and the more often that you reheat it. So we're going to put that in there, and I'm just going to spread it out. And this recipe is really good if you wanted to, if you had a cooked hen or some cooked dark meat chicken, you could totally pull it and add it to it, but it's not necessary. If you have vegetarians that you're cooking for, you can cook with olive oil or avocado oil your vegetables, and you can use vegetable broth instead of chicken broth. If you do that, you're going to need a little more salt. So that's another beautiful thing about the recipe. All right, so now what I want you to notice, and I'll see if I can get close enough. If you'll notice, whenever I press, you can see some of the broth. Let me get a spoon. Hand me that spoon, Ray. You'll see that the broth will kind of well up. You see it? So it's kind of wet, but it's not soupy. So if you were to take a spoonful of it out, it does not drip. So it's wet, but it's not entirely soupy. This is, to me, the perfect consistency. So this will go into the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes at 350 degrees, and you have dressing. It's just that easy. And there's totally no reason you couldn't make this fresh on Thanksgiving Day, and it'd be fantastic. And then, of course, well, go ahead and get another plate if I've got to. And I'm going to show you what the finished product looks like, because I made one earlier today.
Make sure you put a lot of cranberry sauce on it.
Okay. And there it is. Let me see if I can get it where everybody can see it, or I'll hold it where everybody can see it. It's perfectly brown around the edges, a little brown and sunny on top. And I'm going to dip it. Spoon.
This is the spoon.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to dip it out and show you what it looks like, so that you can kind of see that it is firm, but it is moist. So it's good and firm, but it's not dry. So you can see the moisture inside of the dressing. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And this is our homemade cranberry sauce, which Reagan wants huge amounts of.
That's enough.
That's enough?
That's enough.
Okay. So there you have it. Easy cornbread dressing, and I'm just going to serve everybody right here live on Facebook. And how much of this would you like? Oh, you're just going to do it. Okay. It is fantastic.
You gonna bite it?
Perfect flavor balance. Like I said, if you use chicken broth, that has all the salt you need. You can totally use the salt in the butter and the vegetable mix to help sweat those vegetables. Now that was easy. So for all of you who have been scared to make cornbread dressing, don't be. It was easy. We just mixed it up in less than 10 minutes. And I know this was one of those dishes that I said for so long, well, you know, as long as I have my mama, and I'm just going to tell you, my mama's dressing is the best. I've got the recipe, but Her recipes are proprietary, so I don't share those. But this is very, very close. She does a lot more to hers, but she's been cooking a very long time. So if anybody gives you a cornbread dressing recipe and it has just millions of steps in it, you might want to shy away from it and go over to thebutteredhome.com and get this one, because it's easy, it's simple, and it's delicious. Like I said, if you're not on our VIP email list, then you won't get this until later in the week. If you are on our VIP email list, you will get this sooner than that. So if you haven't signed up, sign up today so that you can get this before this recipe drops, because it's easy. It goes along with the KISS method that I like to use in all my cooking, where we keep things simple and basic and homemade. And we always show you that homemade not only tastes better, but it's not as hard as you think either. So we hope you'll join us next week, because I'm going to show you what to do with the leftovers. And now, if you have any. So, but I know that even the best cooks that I know, like every year my mom makes 2 huge pans of this dressing. And this recipe will make, you know, about a 8.5 by 11 dish. So you could totally double it and feed a larger crowd. And that's another thing about all our recipes too. They're very easy to double. But Mom always brings pans, huge pans full of dressing. And she will even bring a vegetarian dressing too. So we like to have a little bit of both, because we have a huge crowd here on Thanksgiving and we try to feed everybody. But we always have leftovers, and it's because she makes so much. So I'm going to show you next week a very creative but very, very good way to use your cornbread dressing leftovers. And for all of you who don't know the difference between dressing and stuffing, I urge you to make this recipe. Stuffing is for inside the bird. This is for inside your belly. Isn't that right? So I suggest that you get some very good aromatics and stuff your bird, and make cornbread dressing to have on the side. So you can have this wonderful recipe at your Thanksgiving table. So as always, we hope that you'll be back next Monday to join us, because I'm excited about that recipe. And then I have a fantastic one, special treat the week after. So be here for the next 2 weeks for sure, so we can show you some really great, really fun ideas for your Thanksgiving feast. From the buttered home to your home, we love y'all. Good night.